Good evening. I'm Gary Hutner, publisher of the Banner newspaper, and welcome to the 2015 West Boylston Candidates Forum. This Candidates Forum is co-sponsored by the Banner and the Wachusett Chamber of Commerce. West Boylston Public Access is broadcasting the forum live tonight and will rerun the program several times prior to the election, at which time it won't be live. There are 5 candidates for the 2 seats on the Board of Selectmen. They are Alan Phillips, David Femia, John Hadley, Michael Kittredge, and Patrick Crowley. Dave Femia had a previously scheduled trip and could not be here tonight. For the position of town clerk, Kim Hopewell and Patrick Inderwish are the 2 candidates. So the format for tonight's forum is scheduled for an hour and a half and is based on 2-minute answers. Each candidate will give an opening statement of up to 2 minutes. Questions will be asked in succession, with each candidate having 2 minutes to answer. The starting candidate will rotate with each answer. After the questions, each candidate will have the opportunity for a 2-minute closing statement. We anticipate 5 questions for the Board of Selectmen candidates and 2 for the town clerk candidates. As you can see, sitting in the front row there is Jen Stanovich of the Wachusett Chamber of Commerce. So when you get to 30 seconds on your remaining in your answer, she'll hold up that sign. When time is up, she'll hold up the stop sign. If you don't stop talking, we don't have a bell. She's just going to wave it violently, so you stop. What sometimes happens is if the candidate is looking down and reading, you're not always looking up. So try and give a look up occasionally when you're answering. So I'd like to introduce our Board of Selectmen candidates, and I'll start the forum with opening statements. We have Mr. Crowley, Mr. Hadley, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Kittredge and Mr. Phillips, I'm sorry.
I know we look alike.
Well, no, we're on a row here. Usually I'm sitting off to the side a little bit here. So we can get started, and before we do, one last bit of information. I'll remind you this at the end as well. The town election is June 2nd from noon to 8 p.m. Voting is at Our Lady of Good Counsel Church. Everybody, please get out and vote. And why don't we get right into it, and I'll let Mr. Crowley have his opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Pat Crowley. People are always complaining that they should do something, and I believe that I am a good person to be the they that gets something done, and I'm asking for your vote for selectmen on June 2nd. My wife Kimberly and I moved to town and have been raising our 3 children here, Megan, Leah, and Jack, for the past decade. I'm a CPA and an owner of a business, tax accounting business in Worcester. I'm also a lieutenant colonel in the Massachusetts Army National Guard. Shortly after I moved into town, I was deployed to Iraq for a year. Even though we were new to town, our neighbors and the community as a whole went out of their way to assist my wife while I was deployed, and I knew that West Boylston was going to be my home from that point forward. I've been a member of the Finance Committee and the Capital Investment Board since moving to town. Those boards offer opinions on all money articles at town meeting. What most people don't know is that those boards go over the budgets of every town department with a fine-tooth comb. So I know the finances of this town to a level that no one else does. I'm one of the original members of the Community Preservation and Parks Facilities Committee, and as a member of these committees, I'm one of the people that's directly responsible for the construction of the tennis and basketball courts at Goodale Park. My experience commanding troops in a war zone, being a business owner running a CPA practice in Worcester, and working closely with the Board of Selectmen, every town department head, and most of the other boards in town, makes me the ideal candidate for this position. I will bring a fresh financial perspective to all decisions that will ensure that the taxpayers' money is being spent in the best way possible. My 20 years of service as a commissioned officer have taught me to be an effective leader and have enabled me to develop superior decision-making skills, which will be needed as we transition to a new town administrator and a new finance director at the same time. Again, I'm Pat Crowley, and I'm asking for your vote on June 2nd.
Thanks, Mr. Crowley. Mr. Hadley?
Thank you, everybody. My name is John Hadley. I'm a selectman. I'm seeking re-election. Having been a small business owner for 40 years, I'm sensitive to the needs of the businesses and the residents of the town as well. I know how to work with people and stay within a budget. I have worked tirelessly with a number of committees, including chairman of the 5th committee, which is the building committee, the Chairman of Economic Development for the town, and also a member of the Parks Facilities Committee, and a member of the Affordable Housing Trust, and the Conservation Commission. I was proud to be involved in the purchase of the new town hall, which is the first town hall the town has owned in 82 years. And the purchase was done for a fraction of the cost of building a new one, and something the residents of the town can be proud of for a long time to come. We have accomplished a lot in 3 years, but we have a lot more work to do. The Board of Selectmen will be selecting a town administrator, chief executive officer very soon. We also need to establish a permanent home for the senior center, and we need a new police station for the town. These are things that we need to do. We can't put them off any longer, and I think it's imperative that we do it as soon as possible. And as always, I continue to work as the best interest of the town of West Boylston. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Mr. Kittredge?
Hello, my name is Mike Kittredge, and I've worked for the town for 22 years in DPW. In that time, I've met so many good people. I feel it's time to give back. I feel public service is something I must do, because if I'm not part of the solution, I'll be part of the problem. I'm fourth generation from this town, and I have the fifth and sixth coming in. I want them to experience life as I have in this town. I would like to finish something my father started also, and like Mr. Hadley brought up, was the senior center. I would like to find them a permanent home that we can all be proud of. I've used my education that the town has paid for over the years, the roads programs and the Highway Association training, to improve the infrastructure, the roads, parks, and sidewalks in our town. I would like to hire a grant writer. I believe that a grant writer can be a valuable asset to this town and not affect the tax base in any way. And the schools will be on my highest priority. They're about to get my most valuable asset I have, my grandchildren, and I would like to assist them any way I could. And if I'm elected, I will listen. I will listen to your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kittredge. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you. My name's Alan Phillips, and good evening, everyone. I live in West Boylston. I've lived here since 1997 with my wife and 2 children. My kids attend West Boylston High School. I've served in the town before from 2002 to 2012 as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I'm also currently a member of the West Boylston Fire Department as a firefighter and EMT. I work full-time for the state at the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. And like Mr. Kittredge, I think hiring a grant writer is critical to the town. I mentioned that in the article that was out in the Banner just recently, and I think a grant writer can pay for themselves. I'm going to leave my statement short and hopefully leave more time for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phillips. Before we get into the questions, I did want to thank Banner readers who submitted many questions to us. Some of these questions are designed from some of the questions that were submitted by those readers. So the first question, we're going to start with Mr. Hadley. Most of you in your statements talked a little bit about your background and qualifications, but be a little more specifically in how that background and qualifications helps make you be a good selectman, and what you feel the role of the Board of Selectmen is in the town of West Boylston.
The Board of Selectmen, they oversee. When someone has a problem in town, they come to us, we solve the problem. If there is something that one town employee needs to be done, or everybody in town agrees that there's a problem with a road or something like that, that's what our job is, to help correct the problem. If there's a problem with the police station or anything like that, we need to come in, correct the problem, oversee it, and make sure it gets done correctly. And we're the boss of the town administrator, so everything we do, through him, he's the one that gives the orders, but we're the one that gives the advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kittredge?
I really think that my experience in the town has, got me to listen to people over the years. A lot of people have asked different questions, and I'd like to say that I've listened to all of them, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. I believe my education in roads and highway improvements can help possibly get cheaper ways of fixing the roads and the sidewalks, and maybe get us more for our buck. We don't have a lot of money in Chapter 90, and we got to make it last as long as we can. And I think if we came to some of the renting and some of the help and some of the things we've done in the past, get back to it with our chip sealing and different things like that, I think we can get a lot more bang for our buck. And I would like to get the board to guide through policy setting, really improve policy setting so that we lead through policy setting. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Kittredge. Mr. Phillips?
Yes. First off, to define the role of the board, I believe, is to be a voice for the people of the community, to bring your issues forward to the five-member board and so that they can be heard. If you remember when I served as a selectman before, there was many times, even though I may not have agreed with an issue personally, I always brought it before the board, or I always approved it, voted myself to approve it, so it could at least go to town meeting and let the vote be taken there. And that's where I would lead into, is that I do have experience 10 years as a member of a board, of this Board of Selectmen here in West Boylston. I was also part of the team that brought in, hired the past town administrator, so I have experience in that regards, and also the past finance director as well. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Crowley?
The Board of Selectmen's role is to set the policies and procedures and the direction for the town. It's a volunteer board, with the exception of $1, and the town administrator is the one who does the day-to-day functions. The town administrator takes his direction from the Board of Selectmen. So that is the main function that they serve. What makes me qualified to be a member of the Board of Selectmen, based on my experience, as I said in my opening statement, is I've been involved with the Finance Committee in town for 10 years. I know the budget line item by line item. You look at the school's budget, it had one number last night. You look at the DPW's budget, it had 3 numbers. As a member of the Finance Committee, I've been, for the past 10 years, drilling down into those budgets. I know where the shortfalls are. I know what needs to be fixed. So as a member of the Finance Committee and as a CPA that's been working with small businesses for 15 years, I am highly qualified when it comes to speak to the financial conditions of the town and to help steer the board that every decision that is made in a fiscally responsible manner.
Thank you very much. Question 2 will start with Mr. Kittredge. The town's governance relies heavily on the town administrator, who has substantial authority. Given the importance of that position and the Board of Selectmen's role in making the final choice, what are the qualifications you will be looking for as the town chooses a new town administrator?
Someone who's sensitive to the town's needs and knows what direction our town's going in, and has pulled down in Boston for us, and who can possibly get us some of the monies that we deserve from all these lands we have in town, especially the state-owned lands. And hopefully we can get somebody that has some clout for us, so you can actually make some calls and make some changes. And someone who's very good with personnel issues, because having a town like this, we have a lot of personnel issues, and he's really the final say in all that stuff. He can save us a lot of money over time. Instead of having to hire lawyers for things, he can be the one that communicates to the employees and other people that maybe boards don't have to sue each other or boards don't have to go against each other. Maybe he can be the one that's the middle person for this and really save us a lot of money.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kittredge. Mr. Phillips?
The first thing I think we need to look at is the experience of the administrator that wants to come to West Boylston. We have to have somebody that's got a flexible attitude and is willing to work with the board, the finance committee, the school department, somebody that's good with budgets, and that's good with working with people. A lot of the job of a town administrator goes beyond the budgets. It goes beyond working with the Board of Selectmen. You have to work with the people of the town and the school department to ensure everybody's happy.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Crowley?
The most important qualification for the town administrator is it's got to be somebody who's an effective leader. Throughout my career in the military, I've seen the greatest units in the world get a poor leader that gets in there, a weak leader that can't offer direction, that isn't able to work with people, and the unit falls apart. You have to have somebody who's personable and can work with other people, because if you don't have that as a starting point, you're going to get nowhere. The town administrator does need to have experience, and especially since we are changing the finance director at the same time, it needs to be somebody that is extremely strong with budgeting. And it needs to be someone that doesn't play favorites. Our last town administrator was excellent at this. He played the politician's role of taking everybody's requests and being fair to all of the departments without picking and choosing his favorites. So effective leadership is the most important thing for a town administrator.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Hadley?
I agree. I think the most important thing is a strong financial background. He has to be a strong leader, administrator. He's in charge of, he has to have mediation skills. He has to be able to talk from one department to another. If there's an issue, he has to be able to settle it without going to a lawyer, without going out of the office and getting it done, getting people to work together in town hall. I thought our last administrator did a great job, and I think that the new one will have to do the same thing.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3, we'll start with Mr. Phillips.
Make it an easy one.
What do you think about the Patriots thing? No.
Well, I have an opinion.
All right. What are the priorities for the board and the town that you would focus on during your term?
Well, the first priority I think I would look at is, well, I've got 2 issues that I want to look at right up front, and one of them would be our tax rate. Our tax rate currently right now is going up to 18.37 per thousand, which is quite high compared to the other surrounding communities. We do have the highest tax rate. You know, Holden, Sterling, Boylston all have lower tax rate than us. At one point, we did have that down to a 12 something. So I think going after that, when you look and people can't afford to go on vacation or to do anything because they're paying so much in taxes, something's wrong with that system. Second thing I think we need to look at, and it's along that, is we have a Community Preservation Act that we passed in West Boylston, and the citizens of the town pay 2% towards this fund, and we take in 150 to 200,000 every year. I think we need, when this was passed initially, we were getting a large match on it. I don't know if it was 75 or 100% at the time, but initially it was a large match. Next year, we're only going to get 18% match on that. I don't know if it's worth continuing down that road when we can shift this money and we can build our new senior center or our police department using those funds, the very same funds, without it costing people more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crowley?
The most important thing that the Board of Selectmen will do in the short term is to hire a new town administrator and a new finance director. Once that is accomplished, there are several items that need to be addressed in town. The first, which is being worked on right now, is a new senior center. The current Board of Selectmen is in the process of negotiating the purchase of the Bethlehem Bible Church, which will ultimately be the new senior center. I've spoken to Lisa Vicklin, who runs the Council on Aging and the Senior Center, and the people that are on her board are on board with the purchase of this building as long as it's remodeled to what they need. The second thing, most important thing that the Board of Selectmen is going to be looking at doing is to build a new police station. Our current police station is inadequate. It does not have a holding cell. So anytime an arrest is made, we need to rely on mutual aid to transport a prisoner to a local town or community to assist us. And to Mr. Phillips' point on the community preservation, the match last year was 31.5%. The projected match this year is 18%, but the Community Preservation Coalition, which is a group out of Boston, is working with the legislature. Past couple of years, they've gotten money out of the state's rainy day fund, so while the match is scheduled to be 18%, it was last year as well, and it ended up being 31.5%.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Hadley?
The fourth thing is we need to do in the short term for the Board of Selectmen is we have to hire a new town administrator. Our police station, which we've been working on, we were in the final plans, state plans for it now. The Bethlehem Bible Church for the senior center. We promised the seniors we'd give us a permanent home. We need to follow through with that. They were good to us, we're going to be good to them. And the last thing we're going to do is hopefully get some affordable housing for the seniors. We're working on a project right now that we can get some seniors to have a place to go when they can't take care of their house anymore. That'll be something they can move forward in the future.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Kittredge?
Yeah, I agree with most of the things they said, especially the town administrator. That is such an important part. We really need to focus on him. And in the senior center, I was really hoping that came up at Town Hall. I was really hoping we could move this forward a lot quicker. I mean, we've been renting a long time up there, and I would really like to have a permanent home for them. They deserve it. They're one of our most valuable assets, as I said before. And our police station is extremely important also, too. And I was just wondering if we could probably get some help from Mr. O'Day and things like that, that we could possibly get some of this land back that was taken during the Cohen bill, when we had no sewer structure or anything like that. I know other communities have done it in the past, and I don't understand why we can't get some of our land back that was taken before sewage. It now has sewage that won't pollute the reservoir and won't hurt the environment. It's, on the farm I grew up on, there was 80 acres of land down there, and before we had sewage, I understood, because there was no place for the water to go except towards the reservoir. Now we have land that's out there that we could develop and maybe make some of this affordable housing, or, you know, possibly use for our senior center or whatever if it falls through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question 4, we'll start with Mr. Crowley. I think all of you mentioned the police station and the senior center in your last remarks, and I think it's pretty clear where you stand, but one a little bit more specific on where you stand on the planned capital projects, the senior center and the senior community center and a police station, as well as other projects down the road, and how they should be paid for.
Right now, we have the senior center and the police station are what are the two planned capital projects that are going to be funded, assuming that the town approves it. Roughly 20 years ago, Major Edwards School was, there was a large bond for Major Edwards School. That bond is going to be paid for shortly. We've used some of that money that's coming off the rolls to pay for this building. There is enough money coming off the rolls to both purchase the Bethlehem Bible Church and rehab it to what the seniors and the community center needs to be, as well as to build a new police station. We can do both of those projects without our tax rate going up. The flip side of that coin is that would require another debt override. There is an existing debt override that is going to be coming off the books. If we didn't do those things, our tax rate would actually go down. But as a member of the Finance Committee, working with the selectmen over the past few years, that's always been the plan. We watch what our tax rate is, we watch what the debt load is, and now is the right time to do these capital projects. Nobody up here has said we don't need a senior center. Nobody up here has said we don't need a police station. They're both huge needs of the town, and the town has the ability to pay for those presently without increasing our taxes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hadley.
As chairman of the Fiscal Committee, we've been working with these projects very closely for the last 2 years, and the senior center, like I said before, is we owe it to the seniors to have a place, a permanent home for them to go to. And the Bethlehem Church, so far, seems to be the best for the money. We can work it out where it's not going to cost the town, have a negative impact on the taxes. And I believe that with what it needs for a little bit of work and what we can do for it, we can make a nice building out of it. The police station it's a lawsuit waiting to happen to the existing police station, and we need to move into build a new one. We have some preliminary plans done. We'll be bringing forward in several meetings around town in the next 2 months, 3 months. We'll show everybody what we plan on doing for the town. And also for the Affordable Housing Trust, we have a project we're working on that we will have some housing for the seniors, and we'll be bringing that around town to show them some ideas in the next few months also.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kittredge.
I agree with Patrick as far as the debt and stuff like that. And I was thinking that a lot of the other towns around us get a lot of grants for a lot of these buildings they build. I know Holden's got grants for their pools and things like that. I just would love to look into some grants and possibly maybe thinking of selling some of the land that we don't use, the old mixed land if we're not going to use it, and maybe try to get some more land from the DCR closer to the schools that we can utilize for fields instead of having them so far away. I mean, that land right there basically has a trailer sitting on it right now and nothing else. And I mean, if I was a neighbor in that area, I'd be kind of hurt looking at that trailer for I don't know how many years in a vacant area where maybe we could put up some beautiful housing, give some incentive for a contractor to come in and put some nice housing in there to increase the tax. That would also help pay for some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
It's funny because a lot of the things I hear is things I heard before and that we've discussed and we haven't acted on. Let me just go back. When we bought this building here, I asked the board and the committee we served on to buy this 3 years previous for half the price. And I was told, no, absolutely not. It's not the right place for a town hall. There's no parking, everything else. the project had one downfall. There was a pool that was supposed to be put in the back. I'm sorry, Mr. Kittredge. There was a pool that was supposed to be put in the back down here that needed to be filled in because it wasn't put in. And it would have had a little bit of construction cost with it. I also looked at buying that Bethlehem Church back when I was a selectman, and I'm not sure what we're looking at paying for it now, but guarantee you it was a lot cheaper during that time. And we talked to them then about using that as a DPW garage and a senior center combined, putting up a Butler building out to the side and actually moving the town hall down there as well. That didn't come up. But yes, I do 100% support the senior center. I 100% support the police department. I think if we look at some grants, as Mr. Kittredge stated, the senior center offers grants for the senior centers, for building them. There's a lot of agencies in the state that will give you money to help build your senior center. We looked at that once in the past, and I think there was if memory serves me correct, it was a $500,000 match or something if we met certain criteria. So I think, we need to go after that avenue, and I think we also need to take a look at this tax that we pay, this 2%, and shift some of that funds as well. What's funny is we give the employees of the town, the non-union employees, a 1.5% raise. Then we turn around and tax them 2.5%. How can anybody live like that? It's got to stop. We got to stop somewhere. We got to stop now.
Thank you very much. The fifth question, we're going to start with Mr. Hadley. Many public officials being involved in their community have potential conflicts of interest, such as business interests or family members that could be affected by votes they may cast. How have you, or how would you handle these issues as a selectman?
As a selectman, the only issue I've had, my brother owns a piece of property in town, and whenever his comes up for anything with his property, I excuse myself and step aside from the board. That's the only fair way to do it. And besides any other issues in town, I have no other liabilities or anything like that.
Thank you. Mr. Kittredge?
The only thing I would have that I could see would be anything pertaining to the DPW, and anything that benefits the DPW in any way, I'd have to recuse myself also from that. And that's about it. That's the only thing I have.
Okay. Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, I would have to recuse myself from any fire department issues, as I had in the past. I was a firefighter the whole time I worked as a selectman in the past, and I've never had an issue with it. Matter of fact, I've also sought legal advice through the town council to ensure that I didn't overstep any boundaries.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Crowley?
The state issues guidance through their ethics department on how to handle these things. You don't have a choice. If you have a conflict of interest or a perceived conflict of interest, you must recuse yourself. I don't own a business in this town. I don't have any family that own any businesses in this town, so I can't think of any situations that would arise that would need me to recuse myself from debating or voting on any issues. But obviously, if something did change, that's a no-brainer. You don't, even if you have the hint of impropriety or the hint of something that is not right, you must recuse yourself immediately.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have some extra time, so we're going to ask a couple of extra questions. So the next question will start with Mr. Kittredge. How would you handle controversial issues such as 40B developments and the long-standing issues at the Reservoir Motor Lodge?
Well, that's quite a question. Wow.
It's really two in one.
Yeah. Well, honestly, we have the 40B we have to deal with, and it's going forward. I guess the biggest thing I could do is try to mitigate the impact on the different neighborhoods, whether it's through landscaping or structure. Try to make it as appealing as we possibly can. Try to get some guidelines in the beginning before all this stuff happens, and maybe try to set some land aside in these places where it impacts so much. Maybe offer some incentives to these people on land that either the town has. Maybe we could work some deal with them some other way to trade off for a different space. But the biggest thing is try to make them the most appealing we can and impact the least amount to the neighborhoods they're going in. And as far as that hotel, I mean, I was just there the other day cleaning the trash up for the town, and it was awful. I mean, I think we have to hold these banks and these people closer to the cheek. They gotta get this stuff done before it goes this far. I mean, it's just awful down there, it really is. It's just, and again, it impacts these neighbors, and unless you live in these places, you really don't see what they have to see all the time. And I guess just be upfront as quick as we can and take decisive action on all these things.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Phillips?
Well, I'll start with the hotel. One of the things I did shortly after coming on board is that I asked the town administrator to draft up a set of hotel policies and procedures. We had no policies or procedures for hotels in our community until then. We did that, we drafted them up, and that was what we were able to use when we closed the Reservoir Motor Lodge. We were able to go back and revert back to those policies and show the violations. That's also what we were able to use to help us recoup some of the tax money that was owed to the town from that hotel. If you think back to when, a few years back, I was serving as chairman at the time, and I was very firm with them on these items at the hotel until, you know, it was either fix it or get out, was basically the philosophy. And we did. We closed it during that time period, but then it took 3 years worth of litigation, 3 years worth of appeals in order to finally close it down, which they just did this past year. As far as the 40B project, I think it's a shame where it's going in a historic district. Should not be there. Unfortunately, the chicken answer is that it's a ZBA issue. There's not a whole lot that the Board of Selectmen can do on it. We're bound by the law itself, the 40B law, which puts it in the hands of the zoning board and takes it out of the hands of the Board of Selectmen. So unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can do, even though we may want to.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Crowley?
I'll start with the 40B project. Nobody wants a 40B project in the backyard. It's a state law. The taxpayers or the voters in statewide were offered the ability to repeal the 40B law, and the answer was no. This was a few years ago. So obviously people somewhere want 40B projects to get the 10% across the board. It's very difficult to deal with a 40B project if you don't have that 10%. One of the things that the CPC that Mr. Phillips has been talking about has done is funded a housing production plan and also funded a man by the name of Dick Kent, who is a housing specialist, to help fight 40B projects and to help the town from getting walked over by these owners of these 40B projects that have deep pockets and can say things and have lawyers say things that may not be true, that may not be the legal reality. A man like Dick Kent on our side knows the rules, and he can at least keep the 40B project owners honest. But like everybody else said, if a 40B project wants to come into your town, you have very little you can do. You can work with the 40B owner to try to get concessions, to try to get it to be the least disruptive 40B property that we can get, but it's the state law, and you have to ultimately follow state law. As far as the motel goes, it's a disgrace. The owner of the motel is a disgrace. And what Mr. Phillips said is correct. You must have policies and procedures in place for all things. Once you get into the realm of the legal, it's a bureaucracy. If you haven't checked every block and dotted every I and crossed every T and taken every step that you're supposed to, you're going to ultimately spend thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees to finally get what everybody knows should have happened.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hadley?
As far as the 40B project happening in town, I'm not ready to give up on stopping that quite yet. I think there's some things that they have sore commitment. We need to, a study we need to find out first. We have some CBA issues they need to straighten out. And they also have some legal issues with their property they need to straighten out before we can issue them. So I'm not ready to give up and just hand them the reins and let them build whatever they want over there yet. I think we can still do something to stop them. And as far as the motel, even though we pulled the license 3 years ago, they still had tenants there up to the last a month and a half. The only way we ever got them, everybody to get out of the motel is when we fined them per day, and they finally evicted everybody, and it was sold at auction last week, by the way.
All right, thank you very much. We're having such a good time. Let's do one more question, and then we'll get into closing statements. We'll start with Mr. Phillips in this question. How would you balance finances from the tax burden on residents and businesses to the needs of the town and the schools to provide the services that residents expect?
Well, like I've been saying, we have to take a look, and let me just go back a little bit. We had an issue one time with the library. Town wanted to close the library. And at that time, I was told there was no money to fund the library, no money to fund the library. And I asked the question, if we go through this budget with a fine-tooth comb and we can find this money, will we fund the library and keep it open? We did that. There was money there. That budget has to be combed through, has to be looked through. We can't balance the budget by taxing the people more. We have to balance the budget and live within our means.
Mr. Crowley?
Mr. Phillips was talking about the tax rate and how it has skyrocketed. The tax rate is not your taxes. What you pay is your taxes. The tax rate is based on the value of your home multiplied by a rate, and that gives you your taxes. We have in this state what's called Proposition 2.5. The taxes across the board on all homeowners in town can only go up 2.5% per year. That doesn't mean your individual taxes can go up 2.5%, because if you put a $50,000 addition on your home, your taxes are going to go up a lot more than 2.5%. But across the board, it can only go up 2.5%. This town actually does a very good job of not wasting money. Is there stuff that can be trimmed? Absolutely. But there's no slush fund and there's no fat that can be culled to lower our tax rate. Health insurance costs alone go up anywhere from 5 to 10% a year. You couple that with a 1.5% cost of living increase, and you're at your 2.5%. So while I would like to be paying less taxes, I'd like to be paying half the taxes I'm paying. I also want good school system, because a good school system increases the value of my home. I want a police department that has vehicles that aren't going to break down. I want a fire department that has vehicles that aren't going to break down. I want a town hall that isn't an old school or a rented place like we used to have. I want a senior center, and I want a new police station, and those things have to be paid for. So we don't have, the only thing we can do as a town is don't approve debt overrides. Don't approve 2.5 overrides, and your taxes will only go up across the board 2.5%, which is essentially the cost of living adjustment or an inflation adjustment.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hadley?
I agree that, the schools, there's some issues with school choice, and we have a lot of people coming in and people coming out. I think this year, this 8th grade, we're losing 34 kids or something like that. We need to adjust that somehow, so we're not having teachers there, and we have kids from school choice, we're paying for school choice to come in. But I think it's huge for the people to understand that the 2.5% is people, teachers get a raise every year, the employees get a raise every year. It's fair, you have to be fair to everybody in town. And the taxes, I believe the tax rate is the fair tax rate for what you get for services. If like Mr. Crowley said, if we want all these new town hall, new police station, new senior center, we have to pay for it somehow, and we don't. That's the only fair way to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Kittredge?
Again, I agree the most important thing is we do got to scrutinize the budgets, and I think we have to hold our department heads accountable to keep their budgets with what they said. And we have to really, I think the biggest thing is, my biggest thing is we got to get grants. We got to get as many grants as we possibly can to offset some of these costs. We don't have the land to develop like other towns still have, that they can put in these beautiful 55 and older communities that impact the town very little, and all they do is bring in taxes. So unless we can possibly get any of this land back from the state, then we do have to scrutinize budgets, and we just have to stay on task. And I think the town does a very good job. I've been part of it for 22 years, and I've seen them get every penny out of their penny that's possibly can be done. I've seen the employees go bring stuff in before to fix stuff for the town. I mean, they're running tight, and no one has to tell anybody else that. And I think just watching our pennies will, keep our dollars in check.
Okay, thank you very much. Time for closing statements. We'll start with Mr. Crowley.
As I said in the beginning, my background is a financial background. Most of the conversation that we've been having up here tonight revolves around money. It revolves around the finances of the town. The Board of Selectmen set the direction of the town. We don't physically run the town, or the Board of Selectmen doesn't physically run the town. That's done by the administrator. My background on the Finance Committee and my background as a CPA and somebody that understands numbers better than most, and understands the way the tax rate is calculated, and understands the nuances of fund accounting, which is how a town is run, I think would bring an invaluable asset to the Board of Selectmen, and I'm asking for your vote on June 2nd.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Hadley?
Thank you. I believe, as a small businessman, 40 years in, this town is a small business. You're running it like a business, you have a budget, people have to do things, you expect certain things out of everybody, and that's the way you have to run the town. And I believe that's the way, the last 3 years, everybody's done a great job getting along, and we've moved forward a lot. Over the last 3 years, we've moved forward and acquired a lot of things that we wouldn't have before. We have a new town sign, we have stop signs, we have a lot of things in town that we should be proud of, and I'd just like to keep moving forward with it and vote on June 2nd, please. Thank you.
Mr. Kittredge?
Yeah, I'd like to just use the time I have in this town, and like I said, I'd like to give back to the town. I think it's really important public service. I think it's one of the most important things we have out there. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested in making it better for my grandkids, because I really want them to experience this place like I experienced it. And I'd like to be able to keep it in check so someday they can afford a house in this town and they can enjoy it the way I did too. And I just plan on being involved in every asset of it. And like I said, I promise I'll listen. If anybody knows me in town, they know if they have a question, whatever, I do the best I can to answer it. And if I can't answer it, I'll find the answer for you. Thank you.
Mr. Phillips?
All right, well, thank you everyone for coming out and listening. I really want that dollar, so please vote for me. I'm not sure why we actually cut a check for $1. I still have a stub with for 60-something cents. I never cashed it. But seriously, there are issues in the town still. They're not serious issues. I shouldn't say they're not serious issues. We're not a town that's ready to go under, but we do have some financial challenges, and we do have some infrastructure that we need to work on. And I would ask that you vote for me on June 2nd so that I can move forward and help the town with that. I work on a lot of different committees in the town currently. I work on the Athletic Association. I help coach football. I volunteer on a lot of different things, whatever I can do to help the town. My interest isn't to come in and say I want to be a selectman. I do a lot of other things in the town as well, first and foremost, before I even look to take a position such as this. So please come out June 2nd, whoever your choice is for candidate, to vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank all the Board of Selectmen candidates for taking this time tonight. We're going to take a couple of minutes and switch things up. We'll bring up the two town clerk candidates, ask them a couple of questions. They'll give you some statements as well. So sit tight, but if you want to applaud now. Thank our candidates. Okay, thank you all. Okay, welcome back. We're going to move into the town clerk's race right now, and we have Kim Hopewell and Patrick Inderwish. The two candidates. Kim is the incumbent. We're going to do opening statements, 2 questions, and closing statements. So give everybody a chance to hear a little bit about you. And Kim will, Ms. Hopewell, we'll start with you as the opening statement.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you tonight. My name is Kim Hopewell. I've worked for the town government for 20 years, 13 years as your town clerk. This is a governmental position that takes years of on-the-job training. All the functions of the job are regulated by Mass General Law, state mandates, and local ordinances. I've taken over 90 municipal courses, which aid in the performance of my job. While innovation, new ideas, and technology are constantly being implemented into the clerk's office, they satisfy the law, and satisfying the law is always an underlying factor. 2 of the town clerk's recent innovations is the initiation of an online program that allows citizens to order vitals and licenses. And we designed and had constructed a vault that will finally protect and preserve our archival records. I've written over 25 access programs for the town, by which a click of a key creates a multitude of reports to assist both employees and citizens. Being able to write these programs has saved the town thousands of dollars. The clerk's office regularly extends its hours of operation to accommodate our citizens with appointments after hours and on weekends. I've traveled to nursing homes and hospitals to serve my fellow residents. Next year, being a presidential election year with newly elected election laws enacted, will particularly be challenging, and experience will be even more critical. A wise man once said that if you love your job, you'll never have to work a day in your life. For me, this is true. Public service is a passion, one that I take seriously, and I work diligently to provide the best service I can to the town. I have the training and experience necessary. I am ethical, dedicated, enthusiastic, and knowledgeable, and I would appreciate your vote for the June 2nd election. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Inderwish?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Patrick Inderwish, and I'm running for the position of town clerk. I've resided in West Boylston for 20 years, and I've proudly raised my family here. My youngest child attends West Boylston Middle High School. I'm very experienced in town government and have enjoyed serving the town of West Boylston since 1998. Currently the chairman and member of the Parks Facilities Committee. Most recently, our committee completed the construction of the new tennis and basketball courts at Goodell Park and is currently working on the development of the Goodell Park Master Plan. Previously, I've held the positions of election warden, planning board member and chairman, Parks Commission member and chairman. My involvement in these various boards and committees have provided me with a valuable experience needed to be the next town clerk. In my professional career as a finance and administration executive, I've served as a corporate treasurer and director, controller and secretary of corporation, and currently a business consultant engaged in municipal, state, and federal contracting. My expertise is in regulatory compliance and business development. I've also attended multiple training conferences with the Office of the Attorney General, Office of the Inspector General, and various federal regulatory agencies, and continuing education courses at Suffolk University Center for Advanced Legal Studies. I also serve as a notary public. I spent many enjoyable years volunteering and giving back, some 20 plus, to the youth of our community through 2 nonprofit organizations. The town clerk's position serves as the gateway to our community. It's a point of contact for resident and business services. The town clerk performs all the necessary critical functions. My goals are to bring new and innovative processes to the town clerk's office, improve communication with businesses and residents, expand the use of technology, improve online and in-person services, work to increase voter participation, development of an online customer service center and document center. And I work to increase the office hours to include one evening hours, one night a week for the town clerk's office. I'm committed to providing quality services. I'd appreciate your vote on June 2nd at the town election.
Thank you very much. And the first question will go to Mr. Inderwish. What do you see specifically as the role of the town clerk in West Boylston? And what makes you uniquely qualified to handle the requirements of that position?
The roles of the town clerk in West Boylston are the chief information officer, the chief election officer, administrator of town records, town meeting process, state reporting, vital statistics, federal census liaison, town census, permits and licenses, administration of open meeting laws and ethics. I think that my professional experience and the experience I've had on the town committees that I've served has provided me with the valuable time and effort and experience to fulfill these roles. Coming in and looking at an incumbent that has so many years within the position, of course, they're going to know more of the intricacies than I would. But with any new position that if I hope to get voted into, that I'll bring my valuable professional experience and municipal experience, my desire to perform well, and my new thoughts and ideas into that position.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hopewell?
Somebody's been doing their homework. Nice, nice introduction, Pat. He's nailed the preliminary functions of what a town clerk should do, and I think it's a very complex governmental position, and the clerk does need the knowledge, skill, and experience and dedication that's required to fulfill all the legal, quasi-legal, and public relation aspects of the job. The town clerk duties are spelled out in 73 chapters and 451 sections of general law. By the courses that I've taken over the years, many have been in elections being the most important, and the skills and knowledge to run all of the elections is crucial. The most important function is the execution of the elections. Laws are complex and they're ever-changing. Procedures for running an election are laid out by Mass General Law. And it's my duty and obligation to ensure that the elections are run in accordance with these laws. I currently supervise 60 employees and election workers. Every year I update the manuals, hold meetings with my officers to keep them informed of the changes. And the 2016 state and presidential election will implement and enact unheard of changes in the election law, which will be 10 days early voting, and it will require the clerk's office to be open more hours and on weekends if needed to provide the services to the people of the town for voting.
Thank you very much. Our other question, we'll start with you, Ms. Hopewell. What is your opinion of the idea of the position, of the town clerk position becoming appointed, as it is somewhat common in many surrounding towns?
That's always been a point of contention for a lot of town clerks. The appointed versus elected, if you go out on the Yahoo in the town clerk's email, a lot of them will not like an appointed position because it appears to be more difficult to deal with the appointing authority. The town clerk's office should remain autonomous because we work for the directly under the guise of the Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General's office. We work with ethics and such, and if the town clerk is not liked by the appointing authority, they don't get reappointed, and that's what their feelings are. Mine is, I would rather at this point in my career go with an appointed position, and one of the reasons why is because the town clerk's office is so complex in the mandatory things that we need to do, and the knowledge that you need and the skills that are needed to have somebody elected and coming forth without the experience to run the office, it leaves the town in a very precarious position.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Induish?
I got a fairly simple answer to your question. It's a decision of the voters of the town whether the position is elected or appointed. It's their choice on how they want to go forward, on how they see the position, because ultimately, we all work for everybody here in the town. I do see certain parts, like Ms. Hopewell said, of remaining autonomous in certain situations, but in my view, it's what the townspeople want, and that's how the position should be made. And it's up to the decision of the town. And I would accept either, whether it be appointed or whether it be elected. With the elected end of it, Again, you're having to prove yourself every 3 years with the appointed, and you're having to prove yourself each and every year, under your review. So again, it's up to the decision of the voters of the town.
Thank you very much.
Can I do a little rebuttal?
Well, you'll have your closing statement. You can talk then. But Mr. Inderwish will go first on the closing statement.
I thank you all for listening to me. The town clerk's position is not only one of record-keeping, licensing, bylaws, reporting, elections. It should also be one of community outreach, reaching out to our citizens and asking the question, what can we, your town, do to help you and your family increase your quality of life and make our community better? I can assure everyone, one of my primary goals will be community outreach if you were to elect me as your next town clerk. The clerk's office should also effectively communicate to our residents the necessary information to assist them with understanding changes in laws, or rules, or regulations, but also the available services at the local, state, and federal levels of government that people may need. I'm committed to providing quality services to the community, to work cooperatively with various town departments, to respond efficiently, effectively, and timely to all requests by town officials, boards, and members of the public, and comply with federal, state, and local statutes. Once again, I'd appreciate your vote on June 2nd at the town election, and I can assure you I will give you 100% effort to the position of town clerk in improving services.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hopewell?
Okay. I'd like to say about the appointed and elected, it's just not the Board of Selectmen's option to do that because of the way our government is structured. The town elected officials are in our chapter in charter, so it has to go to town meeting first and then has to have legislative approval to change a position, so it does take years in order to do that. I'd like to say I've got 15 years in the town clerk's office. I've got the experience and the knowledge that's necessary to continue to work with you. And I wish to thank all of the people who are running for office or who hold office in the town presently. Without you and your sacrifice, the spokes of the town government would not run effectively. The town clerk serves as the hub of the government. Public service is a calling, a passion, and I wish to continue my service with you as town clerk. I want to be the best town clerk and leave a legacy that I'm proud of. I would be remiss not to acknowledge my assistant, Elaine Novia, who I've worked with for the past 7 years, my husband and friends who've supported me and helped me throughout my career. I thank you, and I ask you for your vote on June 2nd.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the town clerk candidates. I have a few thank yous as well. We want to thank the candidates and all of you in the audience for participating in this forum, which is designed to ensure the voters are well informed when they cast their ballots. I want to thank the Wachusett Chamber of Commerce as co-sponsor and Director Jen Stanovich, who did a great job there holding up the signs. Thank you. If I go too long here, you can hold it up for me too. The Wachusett Great, thanks. The Wachusett Area Chamber of Commerce is comprised of businesses located in the towns of Boylston, West Boylston, Holden, Paxton, Princeton, Rutland, and Sterling. I want to thank West Boylston Cable for taping and broadcasting the forum, which will run on the town's public access cable channel through the election. Thank the town hall staff for providing this room for the event. I want to mention that the Banner has been covering the news in West Boylston since 1979. In the pages of the Banner and on its website, you can read about the news of the town and its residents. After voters cast their ballots, the results of the election will be available in both print and online at weeklybanner.com. I want to thank Ken Cleveland of the Banner for setting this up tonight or working with Jen to set this up and taking a lot of that on himself. And an election reminder, every registered voter can do their part on June 2nd at Our Lady of Good Counsel. Please do so. Thank you again.